Skilling is dead. Skilling is more dead than the wilderness. Skilling is more dead than the evolution of combat on a Friday night. You can no longer make a lot of money with skilling. Like, the blood rune has crashed so much, and that's pretty much the only money making method I can think of right now. It's not like it used to be back in the day where you could just pick flax for money or chop yew trees for money. No, nowadays you have to spend a lot of time PVMing, getting to learn raids and doing Slayer to make the most money in the game, right? Very difficult to make enough money to afford, let's say, a twisted bow with skilling alone. People want skilling to be back to where it used to be, where it was fun to train and you made a decent amount of money and it was comparable, at least a little comparable to something like PVM, or even half as good as PVM. Some of the best and most successful skilling updates have been skilling bosses. We have things like the Winter Todd for fire making, we have Temporis for fishing, and we also have the brand new, well, it's not really a boss, but the Guardians of the Rift for rune crafting. The thing about these updates that I really liked is they took really boring content like fire making and made it really fun. Winter Todd isn't like the best piece of content in the game, but they took a skill where you just had to spam logs and burn them into a skill where you can interact with tons of different people, train multiple different skills at the same time, and eventually get a bunch of crates where you can even make money from the skill. So they really changed fire making forever, and most people get 99 fire making at the Winter Todd now. Similar with fishing, they changed fishing where you just click on a spot, wait for yourself to catch a fish, and that's the entire skill. Now you can go ahead and kill Temporis and get yourself a ton of cool rewards, and it's just overall more engaging and it is a lot of fun, right? And you can interact with tons of other players. Guardians of the Rift, however, they took pretty much the most hated skill in the game, one of the slowest skills in the game, and pretty much turned it into a mini game where you go ahead and make all different runes throughout the entire game. You get a really cool reward set for rune crafting, and overall it was one of the best updates ever for skilling. Last week they released the Winter Summit for 2022, and there was a lot of cool ideas on there. They also want to kind of rework how woodcutting works, and I think it's a brilliant idea, but I know for a fact that I can't be the only person who has ever thought of this, and if anyone has thought of it before, I do not know and I'm sorry, but why not make a skilling raid? Raids have been the most successful piece of content I think that Jagex has ever released, starting back with the Chambers of Zarek, and then we had the Theater of Blood, and very recently we've got the Tombs of Amasket raid. People just love raids. You go through dungeons and then you defeat tons of bosses and eventually have a chance to receive one of the best pieces of armor or gear in the entire game. Now, why are they fun is because they're super challenging, they're very unlike the rest of the content an old school RuneScape provides, and you can do it with, you could solo it or you could do it with a big group of people. Now, they have made skilling bosses, so why can't they make a skilling raid where you would, let's say, had to defeat 4 skilling bosses or whatever it might be and solve a few puzzles inside of a raid? Now, I'm not saying this would probably be more successful than a raid where you would use combat, but I think it could be very interesting and keep people engaged for a very long time, and they could even expand it to make a few different skilling raids, right? We get like one a year, one every few years, kind of similar to how the raids have been on RuneScape. I think if they did introduce, say, the sailing skill in the next few years or whatever, they could maybe make a skilling raid on one of the islands, for example, that we would unlock with sailing. And even if it's not done this way, I still think a skilling raid should definitely be in the game. I think they could have it to where, for example, you would have to, say, mine 100 rocks or ores or whatever to open a door, and you and your team could do this together, or you could do it with wood cutting or whatever it might be, and then you might have to enchant it, for example, another door to open it up with rune crafting and whatever it might be, right? And then at the very end, you would have to kill a boss similar to something like Winter Todd. It could be obviously more challenging than Winter Todd, you know what I mean, but I think it could be really cool, like even something like Volcano in a way. They could definitely make bosses where you don't have to use combat for it. They've done it in the past, right? Imagine having like 4 skilling bosses or even up to 8 or something in a dungeon where you had to go ahead and use your skills in order to defeat it. I think this would be just such cool content, and they could really expand on this forever. I don't even really know what the rewards could be from this, right? Because it's not like you would do a skilling raid and then get the best bow in the game, like the twisted bow too. Like that just wouldn't make any sense. They could maybe make like really cool, like different combinations you could use and make like a hammer put together with a chisel or whatever it might be, right? You could maybe have an equipable knife for fletching, or I don't even know what some of these rewards would be. And if they were just so basic, nobody would want to do it, right? It would have to be something worthwhile, like how the raids are now, right? If there weren't these crazy rewards, I don't think that many people would care about doing the raid. It would have to be challenging though, and I know like Wintertodd, for example, is not really challenging. Really, any of the skilling bosses aren't super challenging, so they would need to be a step up from that. Like maybe you could take a lot of damage or whatever, but then again, like I don't know if a skilling raid could skillers, like level 3 skillers, even have access to it. I feel like some type of combat, whether it be magic or whatever, would kind of have to be used in a way. Now, I could be totally wrong, and they could have like different tiers, similar to how like the Tombs of Amasket has like different scales you can set the raid. I think that would be really cool. And the fact that you could do it in groups too, say you could have like an 8-man team similar to Tombs of Amasket, or even just you and a friend, or this could be also really good content for group Ironman to do. And it could be something similar to, say, Temperus, where you could even save or stock up your rewards, and they could even release something like a new currency similar to Dungeoneering tokens. I'm just throwing random ideas out here, where you could buy stuff from the shop or buy experience. Maybe don't buy experience, but I'm trying to think of something that's like Dungeoneering without combat, but it just, you fight 4 skilling bosses and go through a few different rooms, like similar to raids, right? Where you go through all of the different rooms and then unlock each door by using different skills. And you might even have to, say, make a potion to boost your skill or whatever to get into the next room to fight the skilling boss. Then at the very end, there's like a very difficult skilling boss. I just think it could be a really good piece of content to come into the game to kind of make skilling worth doing again, right? So for example, you could do this skilling boss and get 1,000 U-logs, and you could do 2 of these an hour compared to, say, chopping U-logs yourself, right? I think it would definitely make people do this more, and they'd have to make the XP very good so that it wouldn't demotivate people to not do it, right? It's really hard to get something perfect like this. It would have to be fun, entertaining, worth doing, and also worth the experience to do, right? Either it'd have to be a really good reward for it, it would have to be good experience, not the best maybe in the game, but good experience, like average, like similar to Guardians of the Rift. It would be really good experience, but not the best in the game. Very exciting to do as well, and you'd have to be able to do it in a group or solo, I think. I think you doing it solo is very important. I really like how they did it with the Tombs of Amasket, where you can do it solo. I think another huge challenge would to pretty much have every skill be used in the skilling raid. Maybe they could focus it on certain skills, or maybe you could set it up at the very start of the raid, like I want to train cooking, rune crafting, mining, and fishing this raid. I think that'd be cool, and each kind of raid you'd go through might have like different obstacles, or the boss might need fletching to kill, for example. You know what I mean? Like how Temperus, you need fishing to use it. I think that would be really cool, and maybe they could have other skilling bosses in the game be like mini bosses in there. Like you'd have to defeat Temperus to get through the next door. Like there's so many cool ideas that they could do with a skilling raid, and I'm really curious to see if this will ever even get pulled. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever thought of a skilling raid being into the game. Do you think it would change skilling forever? Do you think skilling would once again be profitable, like really profitable? And do you think this would be the new meta for skilling, or do you think people would do the traditional stuff all of the time? I know it wouldn't change everything about skilling, but it could make other things, especially like restricted accounts like Ironman, this could be like game changers for them, depending on what the rewards would be, depending on the experience, and depending on how fun the activity is. I think it is something that Jagex should definitely look into, right? It makes sense. Skilling bosses have been some of the best content, and raids have been some of the best content. So mix them together and just make the best skilling update ever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. If you went ahead and watched the whole video, make sure to go ahead and comment what you think of this, if you'd like it in the game or not. Anyways, I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya later.